Yeah, uh, yeah, uh.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Press Coverage, part of the Going for Two Live Network. On this episode, I am joined today by Bobby J. Allday. How you doing, Bobby?
Good. How are you doing, Kyle? Thanks for having me on this.
Yeah, fantastic. Doing great. And yeah, I think the shirt says it all. I know we were division mates last year in the Scott Fishbowl Letterkenny division, so happy to rekindle that and then talk about some things that were potentially discussed last year. But happy to see you're doing well.
Yes, sir. Pitter patter. Let's get at her.
Yeah, right. Might as well start the episode and let's get at her right away with the sponsor, the advertisement. Let's get this out of the way first, and that way, yeah, choring first, and then you can relax later. But it's, I guess, not a big chore to draft on Underdog Fantasy, whether it's best ball drafting or making picks for specific games or players for various sports. But all this available on the Underdog Fantasy app. So download today, and if you join for the first time, and you can use our promo code or our QR code if you can scan on screen, but use the promo code GF2. Again, this is for first time depositors. They will match up to $100 whatever you put in that initial deposit. So if you max out and put in the full 100, you'll have $200 in your account to join best ball leagues, or again play various contests for various sports. I guess baseball right now there's probably tons of player stats, game stats, various things you can do, and then eventually we'll get to the NFL season and even more contests available. But yeah, join Underdog today. Again, use the promo code GF2, scan that QR code. But yeah, it's I guess fantasy sports a big part of all of our lives, right?
Yeah.
And I guess before we even get to fantasy, we talk about sports. So Bobby, first question, and we'll pitter patter get at it right away. But for you is, what are your first sports memories?
Well, for me, for playing, it's probably Little League baseball, and our Little League football too. And that was really where you start competing with the people around you, and I'm like, okay, you start learning the sports. Played a lot of soccer growing up as well, and then the first sports memories I remember watching is probably watching like NFL or college football. I grew up in Indiana, so um, about 15 minutes away from Notre Dame. So Notre Dame football on Saturdays. Um, NFL is usually watching the Bears or the Colts. My little league football coach was a Vikings fan though, so I grew up a Vikings fan in Bears country. So that was always fun, that rivalry, and we won a lot more than we lost, so it was cool.
Okay, that's hilarious because first off, we've got someone joining us, and again, the Going for Two Network available on YouTube, Facebook, Twitch. So if you join any of those three platforms, you can comment and interact, kind of like Gerson Aguirre is doing here. Now, I also host another show on the Going for Two Live Network called The Dynasty Gambit, and Gerson was my previous guest, I guess a week and a half ago. And it's funny that this week we're having another Dynasty Gambit on Thursday night at 8 p.m. Our guest will be Zach Pulowski. He also lives in Chicago, but he's a Packers fan. So it's yeah, kind of very similar situation to you. So I guess I would say I'm sorry, mostly because the Vikings have yet to win a Super Bowl. So
I'll just keep on waiting.
Okay, well, we won't wait too long to get to the next question. But yes, that famous fantasy question. So when did you first start getting into fantasy sports?
So with this question, I went and had to look back and see because I was like I don't know, and it ended up being in 2009, which would have been my senior year of high school, and I had a trio of buddies. There was a 4-man league. Everybody's team was stacked, and I looked and I went into the playoffs as the number one seed, and got upset and ended up finishing fourth in the league. Peyton Manning and Tony Romo. Uh, which, just looking back, it was wild. I couldn't even remember half the players I had on that team, and nowadays we're so informed and so on top of it. I know third string wide receivers on teams that I shouldn't know.
It's funny. I guess are you in any more 4-team leagues, or was that a unique experience?
I have a few that are still like smaller, probably more eight. I think I have a one that's an 8 man, but most are 10, 12 or more. Like it's that 4 man is a different breed. Like
Yeah, and I mean, this is the third season of press coverage, and we decided to do things a little differently this year. I guess I decided. This is all not my decisions. I'm in full control here. Thanks, Chef, for the network, though. But yeah, I decided. A couple of the guests I wanted happened to be teachers, and then I kept kind of going down the list. Well, how far can I take that? And I've decided anyone who's kind of in the teaching, or in your case, like as well, the coaching profession, I wanted to bring on. So, when did you first get the inclination that you wanted to either teach or coach?
really, when I graduated high school, I knew I wanted to be a teacher. Math was easy to me, so I was like, I could do that, and I knew I wanted to help the next generation and be a positive influence in these kids' lives as they go through school. For school, some for me it was a blast. I love school, love being a part of it, but I know there's a ton of kids out there that hate and not necessarily hate, but they struggle with school and they or they're struggling at home and school's their only safe spot. And being a teacher, you have an avenue of influence to help kids get through some dark times and through dark things in their lives. And so I figured math and teaching, I could do that. Uh, and then the coaching just kind of came along with it. When I was about the time I was graduating, or right after I graduated, I started helping coach Little League and baseball, and had a ton of great coaches in my life. So uh, really, it was like the cherry on top of teaching. It's the schedule works perfectly to coach, and uh, so it just kind of all went hand in hand. And about a few years ago, with the school I'm at now, had the opportunity to start coaching, and I started with coaching softball. And in Florida, softball is so hot. It's a lot of sweaty nights, and that was fun. I was not very good at that. I learned that the hard way. But then transition to basketball. It's inside. There's air conditioning. It's great, and been able to win a lot more games in basketball than softball.
You found your calling.
Yeah.
Well, Jamie, the Cleveland connoisseur, found his calling by letting us know in the chat. He's dropping in to say hi. Can't stay for long, but he'll watch in the replay. And we encourage anyone who is watching the replay to comment underneath the video. That really does help us out with the algorithm. Like, subscribe, of course, to the Going for Two YouTube channel, Going for Two live YouTube channel, I should say. But I suppose you're talking about like positive influences for some kids, like sports at school are sometimes the only positive experiences they get. So it kind of is a natural transition, with that being your primary goal with teaching, is to be that positive role model. How many opportunities you can do that within sports and have kids be really receptive to it.
No, it's it's a huge avenue to like I said, to influence and just create an environment for these kids to have fun, safe, or just positivity, just have someone encourage them in their lives.
So you said a key word being influence, and I'm just going to skip ahead on the show sheet to the question of who have been the biggest influences during your life so far.
So for me, growing up, when I hit high school, my parents split, and my biggest influence in that time was my dad, and still is. Just how hard he's worked, and he always just dropped good nuggets in my life, and kept pushing me and reinforcing, hey, you can do this, you got this. And then also, growing up, I went to church a lot, youth group, and so a lot of my youth pastor growing up, even as an adult, my before I was a teacher, I was a youth pastor, and having pastoral influences in my life, and some of my best friends are pastors that have mentored and influenced and walked me through a lot of things in life to get to where I am now. And so I'd say probably both my dad and a couple of the pastors in my life.
Those, you mentioned like during your teenage years, especially, you drew back to it, like
Oh
those
yeah,
formative years, like we develop the people who influenced us during those eras do seem to have such a huge impact on our lives.
Yeah.
And I guess, what kind of impact has the fantasy football community had on you?
I think so. Last year was my first year in Scotfish, and that really opened up uh, the realm of like all these people in fantasy that once you get into one of those lists or into one of those draft slots or even in a division and you start the group chat, um, the follows just come crazy and it's like left and right. And so I start following back, and it's been really cool to see so much positivity from a league like Scott Fishbowl and, the donations and being able to give back to communities. And seen a lot of people, through hard times find a lot of positive and good things through fantasy football. And even for me, like some of my best friends, our biggest bond is fantasy football or just fantasy sports in general. And even even if they beat me or I beat them, it's still that bond of like, okay, we can still talk it out the next week because we don't play each other every week. So you get that reset.
Yeah. Okay. I can't strategize with you this week, but
Yeah.
reconvene in the following.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we were talking so much about like wanting to be a positive influence. I suppose the Scott Fish Bowl, what it does from a donation standpoint to charity and fantasy cares, but also how it brings the community together. I suppose natural fit right there.
Yeah, it's so incredible how, and even just sitting back, I don't interact a ton on Twitter and stuff, but just seeing how people are interacting, and you don't see a lot of negative when it comes to the fantasy football in this realm. Obviously, if you have a hot take, or you like someone else doesn't, that changes. There's going to be a little pushback, but for the most part, it's pretty positive.
I guess just talking about the fantasy football community, can you draw any parallels between your experiences teaching or coaching and also your time in this fantasy football community, which I guess is pretty short relative, just the last year, but any parallels that you can draw?
I think really for me, I mean, my students could probably tell you when I'm having a bad fantasy week, but
He grades us harder that week for some reason.
there's a lot more pop quizzes and tests that week. For me, it's nice to have that reset of fantasy, but also it parallels into coaching. Playing fantasy. I mean, I play every fantasy out there. The one I just started getting into was fantasy hockey. I know nothing about hockey, but I'm willing to try. And my team, I decided to pick a team, and it was the Seattle Kraken since it was their first year and my first year watching hockey. I was like, why not? So learned a lot about Matty Beniers last year and their playoff run, but for in the basketball aspect for coaching and then also fantasy it's a connection with my students as well. The kids that love sports and watch sports, I'm able to spit out facts and numbers and stay on top of it with them. That way, uh, I'm not just a guy that goes, oh yeah, LeBron James, he's cool. Uh, but I'm able to sit there and talk to him about, well, what about Austin Reeves over there, hitting his threes and percentages and uh, being able to pick at some of these small players and really help correlate their game and coaching wise to an actual NBA player that might not be a top guy. Uh, and so it kind of intertwines that way. As far as teaching, it doesn't really correlate too close. It's more just helping with relational and um, our school, we do a fantasy football league together, so it's even that relational aspect of between the teachers and uh, we get to trash talk a little bit. And sometimes students will be like, all right, did you beat so and so? And it just adds another level to it.
Yeah, you teach students can't see teachers fist fighting or anything. It's not like the X-Men school, but that this is at least the healthy competition that they're allowed to see.
Exactly. It keeps it, we keep it safe.
So I guess my next question was going to be like, because you had specified fantasy sports, I guess that implied, okay, he was playing, not just fantasy football, but you mentioned fantasy hockey. I'm guessing basketball, baseball are the two like really common ones as
Yep.
well. Any fantasy soccer?
No, I tried something a few years ago with the Premier League uh, because of FIFA, I decided I like Liverpool. So I follow them occasionally, with Mo Salah and uh, a lot of the letdowns the last few years in the big games. But I've thought about it, and I mean I know most of the big names, but I feel like I would just be a wreck in that league. Hockey was a big enough jump for me. Baseball,
Yeah.
basketball were simple enough to jump into, but maybe in a few years, once I get the hockey world under wraps a little bit, I'll jump into some soccer.
Yeah, that's a fast sport, so to get up to speed on that sport on hockey is pretty difficult.
It might be a while.
So no fantasy curling, I'm guessing.
No, not this year. I missed a cut. ESPN didn't have it out fast enough.
Yeah, we'll have to develop that a little quicker. Such a Canadian Letterkenny thing to say.
We could do
Letterkenny's
that.
not a real place, but if Letterkenny was a real place, I assume they would have a curling club.
They would run a fantasy curling club too, a league.
Well, yes. So we'll get into a bit more Letterkenny specific a little later. But what are your favorite hobbies outside of sports?
Obviously fantasy sports. I play basketball occasionally, to help get out and run around a little bit. I read, uh, play video games, a lot of as much family time as I can. Most of my family lives up in Indiana, so like we were talking before, I just got back from a trip up there, and
I guess that makes sense with either the territory, Colts games, Bears games.
yep, it's and so I tend to plan those trips in the summer because I am not a fan of the snow. As at least driving in the snow, it
Yeah.
looks great, but I'm sure like just driving it is a whole different ball game. So really just family time. I love coffee shops. Uh, just hanging out. I'm a pretty simple guy.
And yes, Jamie, we did miss you
We did.
because you asked such great questions like this one. And Jamie watches enough to know I don't usually cover video games as part of the high five. So, what's your favorite video games to play, Bobby?
Right now, I just really started diving into Hogwarts Legacy, and it's incredible if you're a Harry Potter fan or just like video games in general. It's a beautiful game. It's well done.
You could say it's a magical experience.
It's very magical. It's made me feel like I'm a wizard. That one, and then one of the bigger games that it got hated on pretty hard was Cyberpunk 2077, and I waited for all the bugs to get fixed out of it, but once I jumped in, that game was incredible as well. And but other than that, it's mostly sports games. MLB The Show is definitely the best sports game right now, just with everything you can do in it. And I was actually playing that earlier today before hopping on here.
Yeah, get your sports chops, warmed up.
Exactly. And get a little Ken Griffey Jr. bombs in.
Wonder when Ken Griffey III will be.
That would be incredible.
That'll be if you play in Devy baseball leagues, that'll be the one where it's like Arch Manning. Let's get him while he's still in high school. We got to draft him then.
Just see the last name and run.
Yeah, exactly. It's funny because my buddy Dylan, he plays Cyberpunk 2047. He absolutely loved it. Yeah, it gets hated on, but seemingly I've watched him play it a few times. It does seem enjoyable.
It was cool. It was a really cool storyline.
Jamie's still playing Tommy Lasorda on Genesis. I don't even know what that is. I don't know what any of that means. So
if he's talking about a Sega Genesis, that was the first system I think I ever played on. And I don't know what Tommy Lasorda is, but I know what Sega Genesis is.
Yeah, so I guess it's the genesis of video games, right? Or at least home system video games, I suppose.
Hopefully he'll fill us in what he's talking about.
Yeah, Tommy Lasorda. Sort us out there, Jamie. So I guess last question before we dive back into the fantasy questions is, Bobby, what's one thing that the fantasy football community doesn't know about you that you're willing to share with us? Everyone likes to have their deep, dark secrets. But
I mean, probably a lot since I don't interact a ton with it. So I kind of thinking about this is not a ton of personal stuff about. Like I said, I'm pretty relaxed, chill guy as far as I just hang out a lot. But like in a fantasy aspect, I love going tight end early. I am a huge Mark Andrews fan. Oklahoma's my college team. And so I have reached and gone out of my way to make sure I have had Mark Andrews in as many leagues as possible. And I
most years that's a good thing though. Like it's tough to reach too high and not be disappointed. So
it has been seeing him questionable every week kind of sucks, but we got our answer.
Yeah, Tommy Lasorda is a baseball game. All right.
Wow.
So it's a sports game, so it counts as a fun one, apparently. But I guess you'd need a Sega Genesis to play it. Do they mod it for PC or any modern day game systems?
They have to. I
mean, if it's good enough, right? Yeah. Baseball heads, they love their old classic stuff, right?
Yep.
So of course they love their old classic video games.
Anything to collect.
Oh, yeah, but transitioning from Mark Andrews to talk about fantasy football. And Bobby, what's your preferred league format?
So for me, I'm always have to be careful not jumping into so many leagues every year. I've been really good. I'm sure you understand the struggle.
Yeah. That's the discipline in itself.
Exactly. But I started up a Dynasty Superflex league with some buddies a few years ago, and that has been one of my all-time favorite. Just the dynasty aspect of it. Learning these young guys. We doing the rookie draft instead of a huge long draft every year, and then the Superflex. I mean, I got lucky. I ended up having Jalen Hurts, and I traded Lamar after his MVP year for the 101 and the rookie, and ended up with Trevor Lawrence, and rode the wave the first year with Urban, and it's paid off since. Had some good years since. It's one of those though. It's super competitive. I've been the 1 seed probably 2 or 3 years, and I've been upset every single year. It is these little 7-7 teams just sneak up and have a hot week when they play me, I guess.
Yeah, no, that always hurts. That hurts a lot when it happens in the final too. Oh yeah, I'm like the 1 or 2 seed, the 6 seed. Just oh man, what my luck that the 6 team make it. This is easy. Nope.
Start looking, you think you got an easy matchup, and I remember a few years ago, probably it was almost 10 years ago, the Matt Asiata coming off in the playoffs for like 4 touchdowns and dropping 30
Vikings
points.
running back, yeah.
Yep. And my little brother ended up beating me in a championship because of that. That was awful.
It's funny how he was like, because when Peterson got hurt that year, I remember like everyone thought it would be Jerick McKinnon, the guy, and then Asiata just bolted all his touchdowns away. And then last year we get Clyde Edwards-Helaire, his rebound, or even Pacheco coming through, and who gets 10 touchdowns? But Jerick McKinnon. So he finally got the last laugh in the Super Bowl too.
Exactly. I don't own a share of him anymore.
Yeah. Well, I don't think anyone has any Matt Asiata shares anymore either.
I'm pretty sure he left like a year after that.
Yeah, he kind of disappeared into obscurity, and McKinnon got a nice contract from the 49ers. So. Yeah, it's funny how we would have thought, okay, yeah, Asiata, he'll be like after that season, he'll be the heir to the throne for Peterson. I'm pretty sure he was out of the league quicker than Peterson was.
They drafted Dalvin, and it was like,
yeah, erasing everything. So what is one rule in fantasy that you feel like you have to have in every league?
PPR. If
Okay, yeah. Yeah, that's a good one.
if it's standard, I am a mess. Like I am trying like I'm sitting there trying to figure out, okay, who's getting the yards, who's getting the touchdowns, because the PPR is just it saves so many guys for just the amount of catches and targets they can get. Or Superflex, either one of those.
Preferably both, to be honest.
Yep, yep, exactly.
Yeah, for sure. No, great. Yeah, especially in the dynasty formats. That's yeah, have all the fun. All right, so now we'll get to the your all-time favorite fantasy QB one, RB one, wide receiver one, and tight end one. You may have already revealed that, or may not. We'll see. We'll leave some suspense for the listeners and viewers. But go ahead, Bobby.
Uh, so for me, quarterback's probably uh, Peyton Manning, just because of how. And I tried to pick guys that I've actually used and
Mhm.
drafted, um, but Peyton Manning, some of those seasons were just incredible. Uh, but recently, I would say I'm a big like I like a high floor more than I like that high ceiling guy. So I'm a big, obviously as a Vikings fan, I love Kirk Cousins in fantasy. Um, Mainly because I know he's probably not going to get lower than a top 15, but he's not going to get higher than a top 10. So he sits in that little sweet spot of, if I go and reach for like last year in Scott Fish, my first pick was Kyler Murray. And then he goes down, and I'm over here scrambling trying to find another guy. With Kirk, he plays every game. He's not gonna lose you many games. He's probably not gonna win you a lot of games, but he's a fun
Yeah,
guy.
in a single quarterback league, you can wait so long to get him that you can just stack every other
Mm-hmm.
position. And in a super flex, he's like a perfect QB2 to draft.
He's safe. I don't know if you watched that quarterback show on Netflix, but
I haven't yet, but yeah,
oh,
seems like everyone's
he's
talking about it. So
he's gonna win you right over. The little dad outfits and the dangits.
you see, my wife doesn't really watch football, but she does enjoy like watching the documentaries or things
Sure.
surrounding it, or like the Kelsey Brothers show. I can get her to watch CFL games sometimes. Oh, we do have a question from Jamie, fantasy related to quarterbacks, so it is on point here.
Ooh.
Would you rather have Russ over Cousins? We could take this both from a dynasty lens and a redraft lens, but they're both old enough to the point where whoever you think is the better season might be the better guy in dynasty anyway. But how do you have it?
And I think I would look at it as that last year of Russ is a very bad taste in a lot of people's mouths. So it's, can Sean Payton get him on the right path? And if so, uh, I don't know. I would probably go Cousins because I know, you know, where he's at, but I think Russ has the higher ceiling with Judy and Sutton and Marvin Mims, the rookie coming in. Tim Patrick is, they're saying is the best receiver in the room. I don't believe that, but they're
He's
saying
done
it.
that in the past, to be honest. But if he's the best receiver in the room, maybe that's just saying how much of a disappointment all the other guys are. Right? That's
Yo,
more of an indictment on them than a compliment for Tim Patrick coming off the torn ACL. So to be honest, I look at the Vikings weapons, Jefferson and Hawkinson, and like potentially Jordan Addison. Like I might rather have any of those three over any of the Broncos weapons. So I think I'm pretty easily Kirk over Russ in any
yeah,
format. Just give me that tie to that Viking. Tied to Justin Jefferson, right? Like that's kind
yeah,
of
exactly.
a true difference maker. So yeah, I'll go Cousins, even though I'm a Packers fan. So the
Ah.
helmet. So no love lost there, of course. It's funny how Peyton Manning seems to be like an answer that's constantly brought up, and I realized I think I've kind of pinpointed why. There's so many people who have had him as a Colt with tons of success, but I guess there's also we've seen it like because you started playing in 2009, so
Yeah.
when you played fantasy, you probably had maybe I guess 2 seasons with him on the Colts, but for the most of the time playing fantasy, that's a lot more seasons on the Broncos, and
Yep.
there's such the 50 plus touchdown season as well with the
Yeah.
Broncos. So fans of kind of either era or fantasy managers of either era can have these like good moments with Manning that would make him worthy of being on the list.
Yeah. That, I mean, and I think about too growing up, like Tom Brady is the GOAT, with all the championships, but I don't know of anybody that didn't like Peyton Manning. You know, he was one of those guys that just everybody kind of liked, and it just was is an easy guy to like, so it was easy plug.
Seems like that the appeal with the Monday night show, right? That's kind of why they wanted such a likable character. Okay, let's just be in your living room and talk. Like everyone likes you enough that doesn't matter what you say, it'll be successful.
You know, Eli's gonna say something dumb at some point.
Of course. Just like he'll throw a dumb interception and whatever time, right? Like he talks the way he played, I suppose.
Yeah.
Good enough to win 2 Super Bowls, good enough to be on this show on ESPN. But yeah. Who's good enough to be your RB1 all time in fantasy?
So this one, I never had him, but I wish I could. LaDainian Tomlinson. My heart, I'd probably go Peterson. More than likely, if I was playing in a league, I had him, as long as he was healthy. But LaDainian Tomlinson, I even put Matt Asiata, and actually Alvin Kamara with his big game against the Vikings a couple years ago.
Game.
Yep, that won me a championship league. So those were 2 just extra add-ins on that.
Well, and it's funny because I think about that Asiata season. I really could say that season because it really was only one time. But the year after, Peterson led the league in rushing, 2015. So came back and was good to go. So even it's not just that 2,000-yard rushing season. Like he put up several times through his career. Like man, and to a certain extent, Tomlinson did that too, right? Because like Jamie's saying here, Tomlinson was his first ever draft pick in 2004 and won the championship. And that's not even his 32 touchdown season or 31 touchdown season, whatever it was in 2006. And like outside of that season, Tomlinson still had these like RB1 week winning seasons multiple times through the mid 2000s. So just a crazy run.
Could you imagine like Austin Eckler out there with 32 touchdowns? That would be insane.
Like, yeah, I mean, 20. I mean, he's gotten to 20, but like that's like last year I think he had 17, 18. That's like double that, and he was really good. He was the RB1. So yeah, just crazy, almost unfair.
32 would be nuts.
Well, this is unfair. Choosing between Tomlinson or Priest Holmes, especially at that time too. Man, what a great time for running back. Sorry, the rest of you getting screwed over nowadays. No one wants to run the football.
This, they should have probably been on that Zoom meeting last week and talked them through it.
I guess we'll pass over to the passing game and we'll talk about who's your all-time wide receiver one in fantasy.
I think of Antonio Brown, those Steelers years. But for me, it's obviously Justin Jefferson. But I love CeeDee Lamb as well. Oklahoma guy, and he's just solid. He's one of those. I'm excited to see what he does this year. I'm hoping he hits the ceiling. A lot of people think he will.
Yeah, for sure. All great receivers. And we'll see if Jefferson can pull an Antonio Brown, and not in a bad way, but in a good way, and repeat as wide receiver one overall. Because I think before Brown did it 14, 15, I think. And I think before then it was Jerry Rice. So it's been it's
been a while.
It's been a while for someone to do that. Maybe I think he might be talented enough. Well, of course, the Cleveland connoisseur would say boost. Still love it.
Yeah, it's okay.
All-time fantasy tight end one for you,
Bobby. If thinking of the past, probably Gronk. Just the runs he had in 11 and 14, and then currently Mark Andrews. Kelsey, I feel like is a safe answer, but Mark's incredible, man. Mandrews.
Well, and so some of those years, like I think of Lamar Jackson's MVP season, like he was almost undrafted in some leagues. Like he was such a value and turned out to like a top 5 tight end season out of nowhere. And even you got great value on Lamar that season too. Yep. But I'm pretty sure the player I've won the most championships with is Mark Andrews. So he would probably be my answer for that, just because it's because he comes at such a value, you're able to build a strong team and help you win around him. I remember I
Go.
took him in a startup draft, and I still have him in that dynasty league. It's tight end premium. We were a bit ahead of our time back in, I guess, 2018, 2019. I guess
Okay.
it would have been 2019, yeah. And
Yeah.
because he had, second season, he did it so as a rookie, didn't have that massive breakout. And I think I got him in like the 13th round of the startup. And I even remember looking back after the fact, it's almost stupid that I let him fall that far.
Yeah.
I should have taken him like 3 rounds before, let alone everyone else should have. But yeah, that
Yep.
was great value on Andrews to just help win so many titles. And, JB saying Tony Gonzalez, another one of those elite tight ends. You mentioned Gronk, you mentioned Kelsey, and
Yeah.
true difference maker Gonzalez. And that, I guess, that was part of his LaDainian Tomlinson team. So get drafted in 2004, Jamie. He knew what he was doing.
No wonder why nobody beat him.
Well, we go from 2004 to 5, the high five section, or I guess our second last section of the show. We'll do a little bonus section at the end, but we'll start here, rocking right off the bat with your top 5 favorite artists or bands.
All right, this is a wild list, so buckle up. It's not really a 5, 4, 3, 2, or 1. It's just I'm just gonna say all 5, and they're kind of on the same tier. First one for me is country artist Zach Bryan. He's killing it out there. I saw him on TikTok a couple years ago, and within like the next 6 months, that dude was blowing up, and he was all over everywhere doing all the shows, and he's been. I enjoy his music. Then go to Blink-182. Yeah, exactly. The next one would be NF, who's a rapper. And then Lil Wayne. Lil Wayne, when I was in high school, was just the dude. He was on everybody's song. You know, it was just, you couldn't go anywhere without hearing him. And then the top one for me is Judah and the Lion, which is kind of like a folk pop country. Like, they got a little bit of everything in them, and they got a banjo, but they also have a lot of beats with it. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, I saw them live a couple years ago. They opened for Incubus, and that was a fantastic show. And yeah, they were great.
So you understand, it's hard to kind of put them in a
yeah, folk hop, hip hop folk hop. I think that would be probably the easiest way to say it. But yeah, for sure. Yeah, Judah and the Lion's great. Yeah, I love that concert. It was Judah and the Lion, then Jimmy Eat World, then Incubus. So it was just 3 fantastic acts. It was great.
That would have been a fun one.
Yeah, no, for sure. It was awesome. It was 2018, 19, I think. Yeah, that was super fun. And then, okay, yeah, and you mentioned you did like to read as one of your hobbies, so I should have a lot of good answers here. Open the book up on your top 5 favorite books.
So this one was a little hard, because I get stuck and I read the whole series. Like, once I get into a series, I'm gonna end up reading the whole thing. So I have a couple that are more series. One for me is Six of Crows, which is in the Grishaverse series. It's also called. She has another set called Shadow and Bone, Lee Bardugo, and it's actually a Netflix show called Shadow and Bone, which I feel like they did a really good job of taking it from the books and putting it in a show. But that was one of the ones that kind of got me back into reading. Next one would be Ready Player One, with Ernest Cline. Just an incredible book. I remember when Harry Potter came out and everybody said, "Oh, the books are so much better than movies," and I didn't believe them. I quit reading Harry Potter after the first one because I liked the movie so much. So I didn't want to mess it up. But that book is definitely so much better than movies, and it's got, if you're a fan of 80s anything 80s pop culture, it touches on all that, and it's pretty cool. Then we got Spellslinger series, which is Sebastian de Castell, and it's a 6-book series, and it's quick, it's fast, it's witty, it's kind of set up in this fantasy world. That one's incredible. The one I just read not too long ago is called The Cuckoo's Calling, and it's written by author named Robert Galbraith, which I found out after like about 2/3 of the way through the book. It's a pseudonym for J.K. Rowling. She wanted to write in a different realm, and it's about guy named Cormoran Strike, and he's a detective and trying to solve this murder. And which I was stunned that she had wrote it because there's no magic in it. It's just regular world, and that was it. It was a good book. And then the last one is The Mamba Mentality: How I Play by Kobe Bryant, and it's one I had put in an Amazon cart, and then it was about 25 bucks. And when he passed away, in that plane accident, the price almost quadrupled. And so I had to wait, and I waited for about another year after he passed before I finally got it. And it's one that sits in my classroom, and it's got a ton of pictures with stories in each of those, for each picture on like that season of his life or that season of that season. Talks about when he was hurt, when he tore his Achilles, how he mentally stayed locked in, and when he came into the league, how he felt like he had to dominate. And I'm a big Kobe fan. He's, I know I'm not right, but he's my GOAT for basketball, and he's just the way he attacked the game is as a basketball coach. It's what you ask of your players to do. So those are my top 5 books.
I'm not going to hate on anyone who has 5 championship rings as a potential GOAT candidate. So
exactly.
I talk about Wilt Chamberlain being the GOAT potentially, and he only has 1 championship. So
that's a good point. Who's the Celtic with 11 or 12? Who's
Bill Russell.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah, all you do is win, baby, right? So a couple comments from Jamie. First off, wait till the Harry Potter TV show. Apparently, they're going to include all the stuff they didn't bring from the books to the movie.
So I don't have to read them.
Well, because I haven't read all the books either, but I have read some, and like Deathly Hallows, I think part of the point of splitting the movie into 2 is because there's really, in that entire book, there's really no scene you can leave out. So I think that was an example of one that there's not really much. I don't remember anything from the book that wasn't in the movies, but there might be the case for some of those books are pretty massive, and then we condense it to a 2-hour movie. Okay, yeah. Jamie, of course, just a big fan of doctors. Would be the famed Dr. Seuss in his book Green Eggs and Ham, or Go Dog Go. Go Jamie Go. That's good. That seems really sport-like. Also, apparently, Jamie saw NF live in the front row a couple of years ago.
NF live is incredible. I went and saw him in a ballroom in Indianapolis, and I thought we were going to break the floor because he has you hopping the whole time.
Hip hop, right?
Exactly.
Folk hop, hip hop, doesn't matter. Just jump.
Just give me some kind of hop.
All right, hopping over to top 5 favorite movies.
All right, so for this, I realized I know I like some of these newer movies, but I didn't really have many on here. So I threw Ant-Man Quantumania on there just because I enjoyed it. It was I enjoy most of the Marvel movies. I'm not a big comic book guy, so I don't compare it to anything. But to me, they're just enjoyable movies. They tell a good story. So that one was on there. But A Knight's Tale is one of my all-time favorites. Just a guy
almost a forgotten Heath Ledger movie.
Yes.
Compared to all his other roles that are so iconic.
And that's where he became one of my favorite actors. And then unfortunately passed. But Drumline with Nick Cannon, incredible. Coach Carter, had to throw a Coach movie in there.
I was wondering. I mean, even Drumline, like it's not coachy, but teaching music to the students and stuff can apply. But yeah, Coach Carter, that makes sense. Basketball coach too. So
that was good. And Rush Hour 2. I remember coming home from school when I was younger, and sitting there doing my homework because I was a good kid, and throwing Rush Hour 2 on and just watching it almost every day. And my dad would be like, "Why are you watching that again?" I'm like, it's so funny. Like Jackie Chan is he was awesome. Like,
yeah, Jackie Chan is pretty incredible. Funny roles, serious roles too. He does so well. So yeah, such a great actor. All right, so time to eat up the next question. What are your top 5 favorite game day foods?
So I put I love wings. I love pizza. On game day, you can never go wrong with that. Saturday, the Pizza Hut commercials and Dr. Pepper commercials get me. So usually most Saturday for college football, I'm gonna have Pizza Hut pizza and a Dr. Pepper. Um, the next one would be chips and salsa, or like any cheese dips or any dips really. I'm from the Midwest and we love dips, so like any of those dips are gonna be good with us. Um, and then pigs in a blanket. Ooh, I love some pigs in a blanket.
Awesome. Dr. Pepper is my favorite pop too, so I definitely get the appeal. I would say pizza is one of my favorite things to have on game day because if you're alone, okay, you just don't eat it all, you have leftovers. But if you have
Hmm.
people over, it's also a great shareable food. So I would usually probably put pizza at number one for game days. And apparently, you're not the only one who. I don't know if Jamie watched it every day like you, but he definitely had Rush Hour on VHS. And just
That's
because he
what
had to explain the
watched it.
baseball game to us, he has to explain this one too. VHS is the format old people watch movies before DVDs while we're playing our Sega Genesis.
I got Sega Genesis right. I'm happy about that.
Yeah, I
I
get you. You're aware. I would imagine Bobby, and I know I certainly. I would imagine Bobby. You've also watched a VHS before.
Yes, be kind, rewind. I went to the video store and rented out. Like
No, for
we
sure,
even
my
had
parents would
the
always get us. You have to rewind.
yes.
Remember those times you get it? It's not rewound. How you feel? Ah,
So,
shucks.
I remember hitting when you're able to, instead of you had to hold it, you could just hit it and it would do the auto rewind all the way to the beginning. And in that time, you could go get your popcorn ready or go get a snack, and you come back, and then typically you still had to wait another 30 seconds, but then it would be ready for you to watch.
Nice. The wonders of technology. Eventually, they're like, oh, we can just make DVDs. Don't have to rewind it all. You can just play from wherever you want. Skip the
Yep.
scenes.
Change the game, the scene skipping. Like, man.
See, we're not cool enough in Canada to have forbidden curtains at movie stores, Jamie. But no, I've never peeked behind the forbidden curtain at the movie store. But I guess I'm not the guest, so I think he's asking me.
my Thank goodness my small town movie store did not have one of those. Or if they did, I didn't know. So I have not.
Movie
But
stores in Cleveland are just different than everywhere else.
yeah, I believe that. Deshaun's there now. You never know. Uh,
That's why you chose the city. Okay.
yeah, makes sense.
All right then, and we're gonna get to the top five Letterkenny characters. So I guess what the context there again was Bobby and I were in the Letterkenny division, so we both absolutely love the television series. I truly think it's one of the greatest comedy shows ever made. Probably I'd put it on a Mount Rushmore of comedy. It's that good. So I absolutely love it. It's also I live in Sudbury here where it's filmed, so close access is fun. I just moved, so I used to be able to walk to the corner store where the Skids always dance, and it was just like a 10-minute walk from my house. Never saw them filming, but yeah, it's a corner store I commonly go to now. Moved a little further away, so probably a bit further walk. Yeah, I remember I showed that picture on our Twitter chat last year, and everyone seemed to get a kick out of that. So I don't know
That's
if I
so
was,
cool.
I don't know if everyone was dancing around strangely, but
Rolled is the inspiration.
I've always been a big fan of Connor, to be honest. Just the silent, the big beard, usually doing something weird. He's usually wearing a gas mask. I can relate now. But yeah, so who are those characters for you? Who are your top five favorite Letterkenny characters? Because it is quite a cast of characters.
So, and that's thinking about it. I went way too. I feel like I went way too simple, and I chose a lot of the main. But you know, my favorite is Jonesy and Riley. Like those dudes are hilarious. All the hockey scenes with them with Shorzy. Oh my goodness.
Yes.
Like those, they're probably my favorite too. But Squirrely Dan, he's up there. Katie, she she is so funny with the common sense she has compared to everyone else on the show. Like, she
Yeah,
kind of
voice of
brings,
reason for sure. Yeah,
yeah,
she's
like,
the cruder, more adult version of Lisa Simpson, essentially.
yeah, a lot more crude.
The smoking weed version of Lisa, I guess.
Yes, yeah. Um, I I think Rold and McMurray are also hilarious. Like McMurray with the mumble one and the like cracks me up every time. Like, and I mean, my Wayne. Like, if you don't like the main dude, he he's just the what Jared Keese has done with that show is just incredible. And like, you talk about putting on a Mount Rushmore, like, it's one of those shows my little brother told me about. He's like, hey, check this out. It's dumb, but it's funny. And I was like, I can handle that. And so I started watching it, and I'm like, this might be the fast, like, the wittiness is so quick in it. You don't see stuff like that on a TV show. Maybe on, like, Whose Line Is It Anyway, stuff like that. But in a TV show, I don't know anything that rivals how quick-witted that show is. And, like, you really, like, and for me, living in the States, it's even funnier to me because I don't understand half the stuff they're saying at times. So it's like just funny words, and I'm like, oh my goodness, what are they even talking about? The whole.
I even lose track sometimes. It's just, but it sounds so cool. But I will say, like, especially to Riley and Jones, you brought them up. That's how hockey players talk. Like, I've heard enough of how, like, they communicate. Like, that is legit. And I know Jared Kiso has played hockey before, played, I think, major junior. So, which is, I guess, the basis of, like, I don't know if you've seen Shoresy, but why he wanted to do a hockey show so much is because he is such a huge hockey fan and huge sports fan. So relate.
Would that be like a minor league hockey division?
So it's major junior is like the 16 to 20-year-olds.
Okay.
So I know, like, in the States, they don't really have anything equivalent. They've got the national, I guess, the States of the national under 18 national development program.
Yeah.
And that's where, like, a lot of those 16 to 18 to 19-year-olds will go and play their seasons out. But in Canada, we do have, like, 3 different leagues. WHL, which is everything like Winnipeg West. So I guess, like, that would be like Wisconsin, I guess, essentially anything Wisconsin West. Ontario would be like Michigan, Pennsylvania, New York, and then Quebec, the maritime provinces. So like New England.
Yeah.
But yeah, divided into 3 regions. Usually I think about 20 teams per league. But yeah, I guess, and from Canadian perspective, like, you see the Canadian players drafted in the NHL draft, most of them will come from that league, unless they're, some of them just go to college and they don't play major junior instead.
Okay.
So, like, you'll get some players drafted out of college, but usually a lot of the Canadian players are going to be.
So it's like a legit league. Like, it's
So Kiso apparently pretty good hockey player. Like, not good enough to make it to the NHL, but still really good. And I get, like, even on Shoresy, like, all the hockey scenes, they're doing it themselves. So, like, I know he was really conscious of, he wanted hockey players that were actors on the show, not actors who could play hockey. Like, he really, like, most of those, like, have you seen Shoresy?
Yeah, he wanted the authenticity of it.
Mm-hmm. Like, those 4 characters they brought in, like, those are legit stories. I've got the book from one of them, Terry Ryan, the Newfoundland guy. Former NHL player, and just I've read his story, and that's a wild ride and adventure. What is it? It's up there somewhere, but I think it's something like my tales from a first round bust or something, or tales from a first round footnote in hockey or something. He makes fun of himself on it.
Yeah.
He's super fun guy, but actor now by trade, and I guess that was the thing. The defenseman who's a musician in Montreal, that's legit story. Like, he played major junior and decided to become a musician. So, like, that authenticity, like you said, it's definitely there.
I never knew that. But
obviously, like, again, hockey's a big, important part of Canada. Certainly was the case for Kiso, and it certainly permeates through Letterkenny in that. But just the way he writes, I agree. It's so incredible. I've been waiting for a show to be written like that my whole life. We'll get to that in a second. But last year, I did have a few members of the Letterkenny division on a special episode of press coverage. I think we were either during the draft or just after the draft. So one thing I asked everyone, what was their favorite Letterkenny moment? So I figured I'd give you that opportunity. You weren't able to make the show last year, but you got your whole special episode here. So what is your... I know, and it's tough to choose from because it is such a great show, but what is your favorite Letterkenny moment?
See, I ended up writing like 5. Like,
okay, sure, yeah, we can do another top 5. It's a higher 5, yeah.
It was too difficult because to me, the to be fair moments, the to be fair, all those, always perfectly timed to hit the right. Um, the episode with the you uh who was it? Daryl's girlfriend had spicy pictures, and ended up getting passed around town, and everybody saying "you." Me and
Yeah,
my
that's
brother did that for like a month after that, uh, and the probably the first chirp moment between the hockey guy Jonesy and Riley and Wayne when they roll up and they go shirtless and the treasure trails and all that
yeah,
like
that was funny. Yeah,
and then them teaching the hockey team how to chirp in the locker room, and they're not good at it. Like they just all say you suck. Um, the super soft birthday party for Daryl, probably our most popular used GIF or GIF in our Letterkenny chat. We saw that a lot.
that's true. Yes, we did. Yeah,
And then going back and watching, I watched a YouTube video on like the top 20 funniest moments to help, and the can a baby be smart when Wayne is trying to figure that out, and he's sitting there pretending to be a baby, and
oh
he's
yeah.
pounding the table, and uh, one of the funniest moments.
Apparently, Jamie hasn't got past episode 3 out of Letterkenny, and honestly, it's like some shows. The first season isn't so great. I wouldn't say that for Letterkenny. Like I think the first season's pretty great. Like again, like
Yeah.
it seemed like he knew exactly how he wanted it to be written from the get go. Big fan of Trailer Park Boys though, and that's I guess the more Eastern version. They're really on the East Coast Maritimes time. But yeah, it's two Canadian shows about sort of just the small town Canada. But just my point of why I like how the show's written so much. My two favorite moments are the really almost every season's cold opening. Every season premieres first scene before the bound 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 the theme song comes on. Those cold opens are just so funny. And comedy shows cold opens are so key because like okay, it doesn't have to worry about plot, but how do we make people laugh? Right. So you usually in most comedy shows get some of their funniest materials right on those cold opens.
Yep.
But the season 2 and season 3 cold opens where season 2 it's the fight that happens at the end of season 1 spoiler cliffhanger. Season 2 premiere it's Wayne and Daryl alliterating the entire alphabet to describe the fight, so using just words with A and then B and then C. That I mean my favorite expression I've ever come up with is alliterations are awesome, and it's true. And then to just do that through the whole alphabet was okay. Like I said, I've been waiting for that in comedy my entire life. Someone to do
Yep.
something like that. So that's why that show just hits with me and permeates. And the fact that it's Canadian, the fact that it's filmed right here in the city I live in is just so close to home that yeah, it's South Park, Monty Python's Flying Circus.
Yep.
That like it's up there with those two in terms of like the greatest comedy shows we've ever seen. At
Oh,
least
those
I've
are
ever
good
seen.
ones. Those are good. I watched Trailer Park Boys, and I feel like like it kind of rivals it, but in such a better way. Like it is such a quicker paced story and like action as far as like the comedy, where Trailer Park you kind of had to push through, and you get those odd moments with Bubbles and whatnot. But if he liked Trailer Park Boys, I think he'd love Letterkenny.
Well, and I guess it's Trailer Park Boys in a sense is almost ahead of its time with that reality TV show feel to a
Yep.
scripted show, and like The Office and Parks and Rec have become so popular on that. But really, like that's how Trailer Park Boys is done, and it's not quite filmed the same way with Letterkenny. It's not giving that reality
Yes.
show feel. They did have the reality show the one season, Crack an Egg.
That was
Uh, but yeah, I guess we didn't give too much advice like they do on Crack an Egg, but hopefully we entertained people and gave a lot of good information. So, Bobby, really appreciate you coming on the show. I guess was there anything?
thank
Sorry. Oh, getting a bit of technical difficulties. I
Good,
guess
good.
it's right at the end of the show.
Yep. Yeah.
Okay, I think you're good now. You can go ahead.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, your audio is cut out completely now. So I guess I'll drive through this. If we can't get you reconnected, that's fine. Because you again, great that it's been right at the end of the episode. But appreciate Bobby, appreciate everyone in the chat. I know Jamie was here, Gerson was here. Everyone for listening, watching. Again, subscribe to the YouTube channel, Going for Two Live. And yeah, we get great content coming out every day of the week. I think Speak on it, and Jamie can correct on this if the fantasy cheat sheet's on tomorrow. You know, he co-hosts that. We'll have the Armchair Show on Wednesday. Like I mentioned, I'll be on the Dynasty Gambit on Thursday, and then we've got some of our PLPs, personal league podcasts. I guess we can plug that before the end of the episode. For 2024, because we've already booked solid for personal league podcasts throughout August. So we'll be we'll be quickly getting to a bunch of those episodes in the next couple weeks. And also the Going for Two Discord, a great source for all sorts of discussions and great place to hang out. And yeah, so thank you, Bobby, on Twitter at BobbyJ I'm Kyle Senra at Senra Says. Thanks a lot. Appreciate you coming on, Bobby specifically. Really appreciate having you here. All right. And again, I'm Kyle Senra. This was another episode of Press Coverage.